Hello. I'm just going to unapologetically talk about myself for a while because right now talking to people about this feels strange. They don't really know what to say to me. I don't really know what I want them to say to me either. Recently, I essentially got the riveting news that I no longer have any normal hearing left. To be honest, I really didn't expect that to affect me in any way, much less the way that it actually has. For the uninformed, I am deaf with a little d. I'm hard of hearing. When I was about 7, I was diagnosed with a degree of hearing loss, or it was kind of said that I didn't need any further assistance in that regard. I do believe at the time we were told that there was a possibility that I would need hearing aids by the time I was in my 20s or 30s. So yeah, I used to go to a lot of hearing assessments when I was a kid, but then it kind of stopped for a long time. When I was 16, I chose to go back to the GP myself, and I was essentially re-diagnosed with a bilateral mild and moderate cookie bite hearing loss. All of my ear and eardrum is absolutely fine. It's nerve damage, and a cookie bite is essentially when your hearing dips in the middle frequency range, pretty much where everyone speaks. So it tended to be that I could hear a majority of things going on in the background, but not actually what people are saying. The higher frequency was at the time pretty strong. Some of that was still within the normal range of hearing. The lower frequencies were at a mild range of loss. My mid-frequency range was in the moderate, and the normal, mild, moderate phrases is what they use medically to describe degrees of hearing loss. I don't think normal is or should be an accurate description because everyone's normal level of hearing is relative to them. I don't want to be pedantic, but I just want to make it clear that I don't believe being hearing or not having any kind of disability is normal. That is how it is described in the NHS. I got some NHS hearing aids at the time. This was at the end of 2016. They were quite frankly shocking. I hated them. Music sounded horrific. I remember walking into my GCSE music class and being like, what the fuck is going on? There is a horrendous sound, like someone clattering dishes and pans all over the kitchen, and the teacher was like, oh, I'm just playing this song out of the speakers. It was not music, it was not a song, it was noise. So yeah, after a while I just stopped wearing them. Then back in 2020 I started working for an optician's, and there was also an audiologist there, and so I was able to get top of the range hearing aids for half of the price I would have otherwise definitely not been able to afford or get, or even really known about. So yeah, I started wearing hearing aids all the time. They genuinely did change my life for the better. Whilst it was very jarring to suddenly be aware of a lot of sound, I definitely went through a difficult period of realizing people were hearing each other and the world in a much better and easier and louder way than I ever could have imagined before, and it became very clear to me how much sound I had missed throughout a lot of my life, and how difficult it actually was for me to have a conversation in which I genuinely understood what the other person was saying, whereas before, because of my brain was filling in all the blanks, lip reading, I had kind of felt like I could hear more than I actually could. I had been getting a lot of that very wrong. I suddenly realized how much difficulty it had caused me throughout my life, and how many misunderstandings I had been involved in, and how tired I was all the time. So much of my life could be explained by the fact that I was really struggling to hear, and the fact that I was so high functioning within a world that expected me to do something that I physically could not do was abnormal. It was taking me a lot of strain to do that without hearing aids. essentially. And so I kind of had to go through like an initial grieving process. So I kind of continued in this way for a while. And hearing aids, obviously, they're a fucking piece of technology, machinery. They get worse over time. Within the last few months, my hearing aids stopped holding charge for any longer than 2 hours, which was making life very difficult. This forced me to go back to an audiologist. I haven't had my hearing tested at all over the past 3 years since I've been at uni. She sent them off to be repaired and have the battery replaced. She was like, I'm gonna do your hearing test so we can get them set back up. I've done a lot of hearing tests, but this one was the hardest one I've ever done. If you've never had a hearing test, they essentially just play beeps at different frequencies and different volumes, and you have to click a button when you can hear. It literally felt like I was going insane. I have tinnitus, which I can ignore if I don't think about it, but when it is silent, it is very loud, and when it is silent and you're trying to listen for a beep, it was the only thing I could hear, and it kept changing pitch. I really was trying to focus to listen out for the beeps, and it felt like they were never there. I was just like, I don't remember it being this impossible. She showed me the results. It was the first time I looked at it and thought, that looks really bad. It was the first time I looked at the audiogram and I didn't recognize the shape as being the shape of my hearing. In the last 3 years, in the higher frequency ranges, I've had a massive 30 decibel loss in the worst points of it, which is where you get all your clarity noises from. And I realized, oh, that's why I feel like I can't hear anything at the moment. Even when I had my hearing aids on, I was constantly turning them up. I felt like I had no fucking clue what was going on around me, and I hadn't really realized the build-up of that over the past few years. Other things that stood out to me was that I no longer have any normal level of hearing, and that my hearing has finally started to dip into the severe territory. Hearing fluctuates a lot. Sometimes it even goes up by 5 or 10 decibels and comes back down again a few years later. The good thing is that it has given me a kick up the arse to learn BSL. I feel robbed of being taught BSL at an early age, knowing other deaf people, knowing deaf culture. I feel robbed of this being an easier transition for me from when I was 7, being told that you don't need any further assistance, to now at this stage, if I didn't wear hearing aids, I couldn't live life in the way that I currently do. I need to learn how to communicate without the use of hearing aids because I'm so dependent on them. Whilst they have given me so much confidence, I need to find now the freedom of not relying on them. It's frustrating that I don't already know how to do that. I feel now more than ever like I'm in between two worlds that I can't fully be a part of either of them. I was really lucky last year I got to experience for the very first time a bilingual room in which the predominant language was BSL. Never had this experience, but it's what I imagine feels like if, say, for example, your grandparents speak a different language to you, even though you have this bond, you don't have a shared language. And that was how I felt. I felt like that's me. I should be able to understand that, and I can't, and I don't understand, and I don't know how to talk. It's a strange thought that at the end of my life I could be no longer a speaker of my first language, and maybe I can't hear music anymore. Maybe I don't sing anymore. Maybe I can't communicate with some people that I love right now anymore. All of that could never come to pass, but it also could, and I have to be okay with that. I have to actually wholeheartedly accept the part of myself that can't hear. It's weird, scary, and strange. I want to be someone that can fully accept my disability. I would never see anyone else's deafness or disability as something wrong with them. I would never see them as someone who has lost something. That's just their life. This is just my life. But it is hard when you know that life could have been different, and you see people around you whose lives have been different, and you've kind of tried to have that be your life, and now it's not. It's definitely not going to be that way. It's one thing knowing in theory, but it's so hard to experience that change, and I'm trying to see it as a change and not a loss, a transition. Not only how I'm going to deal with that, but how the people in my life are going to have to deal with that, because when I wear my hearing aids, I can most of the time understand and respond, so therefore people assume I can always understand and always respond. It is quite funny. When you take them out, people will still interact with you in exactly the same way. I can see your mouth moving, and that's it. I need to learn how I can fit into a deaf world. And yes, I am terrified and I'm sad. That is the situation, and I will come to accept as much as I can, and I will find ways to enjoy the things that I enjoy, and I will find new things that I enjoy that don't involve sound. I don't know how to end it because there's no conclusion. There we go. Those are some thoughts for now.